On November 2022, writer Corey Ephraim Doctorow made a blog post in which he coined a most peculiar yet interesting word, enshittification. Though it may initially sound like a meme word you'd find on Twitter, he then went on to further elaborate on the concept. In simple terms, enshittification is the process by which a platform or service's quality begins to degrade over time, primarily with the intent to maximize profit, thus causing an eventual loss in service. This is most pronounced when a service or product not only begins to get more expensive, but in some cases it becomes close to inaccessible without first meeting a paywall, a free-to-play game becoming pay-to-win, or something to that effect. Such an occurrence may sound familiar to many of us. It appears to have been happening to League of Legends over the past few years. When I first began producing content for a living, arguably my most recognizable videos have been Why No One Plays, the flagship series not just for Vars 1 but for Vars 2 and Vars 3 as well. It's what allowed me to stand out over existing creators at the time, and a series I very much enjoyed looking into. On multiple occasions, I would get comments joking about how with the number of Why No One Plays episodes I have, I should just make a Why No One Plays video for the game as a whole. Obviously those remarks are made in jest, but I always entertained the thought of making one, maybe as an April Fool's video or just making it as a meme. Never did I imagine I would have to make one unironically. To be fair, League is still an incredibly popular game and likely will continue to be the #1 mobile title for years to come. Like with all Why No One Plays videos, the title is not meant to be taken literally. A more accurate one would be why people are quitting League, but I figure I can use a bit of creative licensing to have a somewhat catchy title. In any case, while I could have made this video a month ago, doubtless many of you have been made aware of the growing disdain the community has had towards League, far more than the usual toxicity. A substantial number of players, casual and competitive, have been expressing less interest in playing the game as a result of a series of company decisions that have led to the gradual degradation of the game's experience. That's what this video is going to be about. I wanted to share my own candid thoughts on the matter, as someone who's been playing the game for a decade now, and also as someone who quite literally built a living from talking about this game, among several others. I have never been shy with voicing criticism towards Riot for their champion designs in the past, but I've always tried to look at things from both perspectives and to try to take them in as good faith as I possibly could. No such concession will be given here. As much as League has become an integral part of my livelihood, I, like many of you watching, am beginning to exhaust what little patience and goodwill I have with the company, and if restitutional change isn't made within the near future to amend their mistakes, I see no reason to continue giving exposure to a game that dishonors the very player base that made League of Legends what it is today. To start, many of you might recall the ambitious announcements being made that 2023 would be the biggest budget of all time for League, and that 2024 would be even bigger. Initially, players were excited to hear the news, believing the working capital would be used to invest into the game, perhaps improve the game's embarrassingly poor client, or maybe, as a pipe dream, a big expansion to the game, possibly League of Legends 2. Theories came about on what that would be used for, and just as we were entering 2024 and getting ready to see what they would do, in January, the very start, the company laid off over 500 employees, roughly 11% of their entire working body. To give credit where it's due, they at least had the decency to offer possibly one of the most gratuitous severance packages I've ever seen, so they made sure to spare no expense in softening the blow. But what caused most of it to be disregarded is how unexpected the layoffs in question were, in light of the 2024 budget announcement that came before. While this certainly was a foreboding look for the year going forward, to an extent it did not affect the experience of the game for most players. Not immediately anyway. Around the same time, a decision was made to discontinue Riot Forge, a publishing label that was responsible for making spin-off games like Ruined King, Mageseeker, Convergence, Song of Nunu, and Vandaltale, games that served to expand more on the mythos of League's universe and to widen the scope of the League of Legends brand. A noteworthy shutdown to point out, but that only captured a small portion of the overall player base's interest. It wasn't until midway through the year that the community at large would bear witness to the game's enshittification. During spring of last year, an extremely controversial decision was made to release a special legacy skin commemorating Faker's inclusion in the Hall of Fame, the immortalized legend Ahri, the supposed prestige edition of the Risen legendary skin. While certainly a very elegant design paying homage to the greatest League of Legends player to ever exist, obtaining the skin in-game is where backlash began to erupt. Unlike most other skins, you couldn't just go into the shop and buy them for $10 to $25 and call it a day. You had to buy a special package containing a multitude of items, including the skin. How much did it cost? 3,000 RP? Nope. 5,000? Not even close. To acquire the premium Faker Ahri skin, you would have to spend 59,260 Riot points. How much is that? Equivalent to around $500 USD. Considering the most expensive skins to come out for purchase were 3,250 RP, that is over 18 times more expensive. Acquiring just the immortalized legendary skin without Faker signatures would cost around 30,000 RP or $250. But even that was beyond absurd to remotely consider. Skins are extremely marketable commodities in League, evidenced by how much revenue they generated from skin sales over the years, but much of that had to do with the affordability of the skins. An epic skin would cost $10, a reasonable amount to spend on something that you would see being used all throughout your time in League. Even legendary skins were in the realm of acceptable, especially considering the quality of animations and new voice lines. Ultimate skins, at least some of the older ones like Elementalist Lux, were a more premium purchase that not many would be too inclined to splurge on, but those who did definitely got their money's worth. All these skins were then also made potentially obtainable through the Hextech crafting system, so there was always an opportunity to get them entirely for free if you were lucky enough. The Faker Ahri skin though not only was unobtainable through free-to-play means, but it featured a price tag 18 times more expensive than the most expensive skin money could buy prior to that point. Even $50 would have been a hard pill for most players to swallow, let alone $500. And while I've always been a proponent of spending money on hobbies you enjoy, especially a hobby that provides hundreds of hours of entertainment like video games, there's an objective line between a price willing to pay for entertainment and blatant price gouging. This was unequivocally the latter. The backlash was so visceral, players colloquially agreed to disallow Ahri being played by anyone to voice their dissatisfaction towards Riot for the stunt they just pulled. In April and May of 2024, Ahri's ban rate went as high as almost 50%, not because she was overpowered or just got buffed, but because of the Faker Ahri skin. Sadly, this wouldn't even be the worst offense the company made. On a side note, over the years, players also noticed an increase in the rate at which new skins are being produced. While not a bad thing on its own, there was also a concerning increase in skins that appeared to reuse models, animations, and graphics from previous skins or releasing an existing skin just with extra adjustments made to it. This technically happened a long time ago with the Prestige skins, but it's become even more prolific. More skins apparently recycling the same animations or asset base, tons of legendary skins that look like glorified epic ones, and so forth, almost as if they were trying to get us to spend more money without putting any effort into it on their end. On the subject of spending more money, towards the end of 2024 came the Sanctum, a gacha system wherein players could unlock exalted skins, aka the super expensive ones, by pulling for them through a standard gacha system. Gacha mechanics have become more popular throughout the past decade as the gacha business model grew in size and exposure, with Vars 2 being primarily focused on Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, and Honkai Star Rail, and having played gacha games for 9 years now, I'm all too familiar with the system, for better or worse. It's been frequently denounced for encouraging problem gambling by enticing players to spend exorbitant amounts of money for the chance to not have to spend exorbitant amounts of money. The hard pity, which for the uninitiated is the amount of pulls required to guarantee the jackpot item, is 80, with each pull costing 400 RP. That would mean the guarantee for an exalted skin would be 32,000 Riot points, $250. The Faker Ahri skin debacle was not a one-time occurrence. New exalted skins are being released on a frequent basis, meaning you could potentially spend $250 a month on trying to acquire a single skin. That same amount could have bought you literally 20 skins beforehand, which were of comparable animation quality as most of the exalted ones. So not only were skins getting increasingly more expensive, but they were also getting worse in quality. It didn't help that many of these skins were also limited time, making it so if you didn't pull for them right now, you would never get another chance. Classic FOMO. Now, up to this point, most of the skin changes only really affected a small number of players. The majority of League's community consisted of people who spent no money at all, only acquiring skins through Hextech crafting, honor capsules, and the like. While it sucked to miss out on really cool skins, they were ultimately a luxury that most players could do without. But then, a series of changes were made that fundamentally altered the experience of the game for the worse. Starting with the Battle Pass. The Battle Pass was another paid model that made it so players could obtain rewards by playing the game, and even more if you unlocked the premium rewards. People weren't too enthusiastic about this being in the game as it felt like another cash grab, but they were tolerant of it due to the free rewards being incentive enough to keep playing, as it gave free key fragments and chests to open. But then players noticed in 2025 the first Battle Pass of the new season had no chests, instead just a pitiful amount of blue essence and a couple key fragments. Shortly after came the news that Hextech Chests would no longer be obtainable for free, effectively rendering the Hextech crafting system non-functional unless you bought chests with real money. What was meant to be a fantastic quality of life method for non-spending players to get their hands on skins, a system that improved on the experience of all players, free-to-play, skin enthusiasts, and whales alike for years, was now completely shut off for the vast majority. Never have I seen such unanimous contempt for Riot Games than I have from this change. Being the dumpster fire that it is, League gets no shortage of backlash by the player base whenever Riot makes a toxic meta or releases a broken champion. But the removal of free Hextech crafting was a change so universally hated, players have actively begun to quit the game in droves. As if that wasn't a big enough blow, They also announced that honor capsules and orbs would no longer be given out, yet another way for players to get their hands on more skins, emotes, and whatnot. Even with all that in consideration, and believe me, that's a lot to consider, defendants could still argue that skins were fundamentally luxuries that did not have any bearing on a player's gameplay experience. Sure, you could say that you don't need skins to play a champion. While it would be nice to play a character with extra visuals and flair, they are technically non-essential so long as you have the champion. But then Riot decided to make champions extremely difficult to obtain for free as well. Blue Essence was nerfed by a substantial amount. Previously, you could expect to obtain about 4 to 6 new champions per Battle Pass season. After this change, you can more or less expect to obtain 4 to 6 new champions per year. They basically made it so unlocking the entire champion pool by playing the game long enough was no longer practical. You have to buy them now. One change after another, the game became more and more inaccessible for free-to-play players. First it was for luxurious skins, then it was for regular skins, and now it was for champions. The funny thing, or sad thing is, I haven't even exhaustively covered everything there is. They took away Prime capsules a while back, which was a nice way for players with Amazon Prime to get free RP and stuff. They also took away your shop, the thing they do every so often to sell skins at varying discounts, which when combined with the stipend you got from Prime capsules, allowed you to buy skins for free as well. They essentially ruined the experience for all players, not just free-to-play, but also paying customers, exactly what enshittification is. When the quality of a platform or service degrades for the everyday user in favor of business customers, aka paying ones, then they degrade the quality to users and business customers to maximize profits. Again, most paying players were fine with dropping maybe 20 to 30 bucks a month on a couple skins here and there, but now that the price inflated to $250 a month, even paying players no longer want to pay, especially when taking into account the knock-on effect of all free stuff being phased out of the game. For as long as I can remember, League always stood as the paragon of free-to-play accessibility. While most other mainstream games were filled with microtransactions, real-world trading, or pay-to-win incentives, League distinguished itself for the full experience being made available to players at no charge. It is what inspired so many companies to view it as a gold standard to emulate, and all this time developers have been trying to implement the same practices Riot has done. To see the game go against everything it once stood for is what makes the enshittification process all the more painful. On its own, making exalted skins or the Faker's Ari skin cost a month's groceries would have been tolerable, and I say that generously, if there were ways for players to potentially get them for free or grind for them or whatnot. But not only were they flat out not made obtainable, but they also went and took away everything else, all in the name of maximizing profits. The excuses they come up with that Hextech Chests and honor capsules are not sustainable for the company are just that, meaningless excuses. League was thriving and doing perfectly fine during the 8 years the players had free access to this stuff. They made billions every year, all while providing free things, and even from a business perspective, giving free stuff is ironically the best way to make more money. That is why every single big company on earth has free coupons, reward programs, loss leaders, buy one get one free deals, so on and so forth. It's to encourage you to spend more money. I don't think the higher-ups at Riot realize the complete lapse in common sense behind their decisions. Customer satisfaction is the #1 priority for any product or service. It's not the price, it's not the wherewithal of the customer, it's whether they like your product and by extension your company or not. If they don't, they won't spend. You could have the best gameplay in the world, but if people don't like the company of the game, they won't spend on it. It's public relations 101. Every single decision they've made has only added more and more chips on the player base's shoulders, more and more of a reason to hate the game more than they already do, more and more of a reason to not spend and support the company. By being so hyperfixated on maximizing revenue, every decision they've made will only result in less revenue for the company long term. They might be able to squeeze out more from higher spending players, but just as a rising tide lifts all boats, a falling tide lowers all boats. The whole community suffers, both free-to-plays and paying ones. It's more than being a loss leader to generate more revenue. These free incentives and rewards are meant to serve as gestures of goodwill to show appreciation to the players that have turned the game into what it is today. To take all that away and then some betrays that goodwill, leading to a loss of not just financial support but also word of mouth and reputation. People are always pessimistic when it comes to League. Jokes are made all the time about quitting being an act of setting yourself free or telling their friends to never start playing the game. But I think I speak for most of us when I say that League of Legends, the game, is amazing. It's a title you only see once in a generation. What makes it so aggravating is the player base, not the game. If the player base wasn't so insufferable, League would actually just be the most addicting game of all time. But for the first time in my life, I think the game is no longer amazing anymore. Skins may seem like frivolous luxuries to players, but they represent an integral essence of League's experience. Imagine playing Minecraft, but you can only use decorative blocks if you pay for them. It's just not the same without that. And then they went on to make champions inaccessible, blocking off a huge part of what League is about, unlocking and trying new champions. Enshittification sucks not because a product is bad, but because a product was once good and then became bad. If League came out with all this garbage from the get-go, we'd have our expectations at that spot, but we had good stuff, and then they took it away. One thing I appreciated about League is that for as long as I've been making content for it, I've always wanted to make more. I never got bored of talking about the game, even during times when I was bored of playing it. There was just so much to talk about with this game that I feel like I could make videos on it for years and years to come. But in light of all that's been happening, even talking to my other League YouTuber friends like Nikki, Chimes, Dumps and stuff, morale has never been this low for all of us. And it really hurts, especially for us creators, because League is literally our livelihood. It's our career. We invested so much time and passion into this, only for Riot to turn around and treat the game we all love to hate and hate to love into nothing more than a cash cow. All I can say is, I hope that in the 2 weeks it takes to make this video and upload it, it's already outdated, because if they don't, this will spell disaster for the League of Legends brand in the long run. As someone who studied game design and as a business owner myself, none of the decisions they made are justifiable in any way. I don't care who their shareholders are, it's not even business sense at this point, it's common sense. Anyway, what do you guys think about all this? I mean, I already know, but feel free to share in the comments regardless. That's it for today, so if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and if I do decide to continue uploading more content, be sure to stay tuned for that as well. Or you can go watch my older videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.